When it comes to tokenomics in crypto, it's very important to check the token vesting schedule, especially for ones which have private investors, because the majority of them out there do. Even ones that are being airdropped to you have had some sort of private investors, because how else could they fund themselves if they could afford to just airdrop you a certain percentage, right? Most of them airdrop you in order to attract you to that specific project so that you can perhaps buy more. In some cases, they reward you because they have been paid by a bigger team. In this case, it could be the case that if you had staked Celestia, TIA, the TIA token, you would have received Dymension tokens. And so it could be that the Celestia team has paid the Dymension team a certain number of tokens just to incentivize you, the retail investor and the staker, to actually stake TIA in order to receive that Dymension airdrop. So that could also be arranged as well. So you just have to be careful and just take the airdrops with a pinch of salt, because there's always some sort of catch in the end. And so one of the things that I've been wanting to analyze for a while were the tokenomics for Dymension, because Dymension had been doing very well initially when it listed, right? It went to over $8 and then it's just been on a constant downtrend. As we can see here on the 1 hour chart, it's just breaking out of that downtrend now, but there's just not enough strength for it to break out properly, even with all the airdrops that were announced. So as you can see here, it made the first attempt here when it went to 324 from 275 from around this area here. So as you can see here, it's just about starting to move back up here, but it is struggling, okay? $3.27, it's currently around $3.20. Okay, so if we look at the tokenomics for Dymension, we can see here, this is how it is, right? 1 billion is the total supply. Backers are getting a certain percentage. The core contributing team are incentives manager, the ecosystem and R&D, public allocation, and the community pool. So we can see here that the Genesis roll drop is fully unlocked at Genesis. Okay, so all of them are in circulation. Incentivized testnet got paid out at Genesis as well. Incentives manager available to governance at Genesis, non-circulating. The community pool available to governance at Genesis, non-circulating. The backers have a 12-month lockup followed by a 24-month linear vesting. Okay, so the backers have not received any of their Dymension tokens yet. Now, ecosystem and R&D, 33% was available immediately, and the remaining vest linearly over 3 years, which means they're constantly getting this unlocked over the next 3 years. Okay, it's not a huge percentage, but the fact that 33% has been already made available, of course, they could have just offloaded that. And then there's the core contributing team, which has a 12-month lockup. So you just have to be careful with these, right? Because if we look here, ecosystem and R&D are 20%. Okay, so 200 million are allocated to ecosystem and R&D. So over 60 million were already unlocked to these people. Okay. So yeah, it is a concern, because 60 million tokens is a lot and many things can happen. And then when it comes to incentivizing all these different dApp developers to launch rollups on Dymension, they are also being paid, right? Not many of them are just developing because they want to. They're being paid to develop. They're being given a funding, right? They're being given funding in Dymension tokens most of the time. Right, unless because they have to pay somehow, right? I doubt they're actually going to use their funding from their investors to pay developers to come and build on Dymension. Of course, they're going to incentivize them in their tokens, especially because they're trading already and they're on various exchanges. So of course they want to generate that liquidity, and so most of those tokens are being dumped. Okay, you got to keep that in mind as well, and it's to keep stakers in, it's to attract people. It's like one of those vicious cycles where you're staking so that they can then sell, but then they're giving you a reward because of your stake. So you now have to rely on new people to buy in order to see some sort of return, especially because some of these airdrops could be profitable, but also the main token could be profitable eventually if there will be enough demand on the next altcoin rally. But for now, $3.20. Okay, so yeah, as you see here, the tokenomics are not that great. They're not the worst. They're the typical that you would see with most tokens. But nevertheless, like I've personally not invested a lot, in Dymension. I am down more than 50% since my investment, but I have been getting these airdrops and I will be getting more. So we'll have to see how these airdrops are going to perform. NIM is not that great right now. I've only gotten back like 3 to 4% of my initial investment from it, and I haven't sold NIM. I'm still holding on to it because I'm just waiting for that altcoin rally. That's when I plan to sell most of these airdrops, when the altcoin rally begins again. And I see there's a lot of hype, a lot of demand in the market. It's just the best time to get out. That's what I've noticed, because we've had that in March, and I have gotten out of some of the old coins, but unfortunately not all of them. I should have just moved into stable coins with over 50% of my portfolio at that point because of that hype. But I was concerned that it's going to be like in 2021, where we get that initial spike of the altcoin rally and then it continues going higher, perhaps 2 to 3 times higher, and then I would be missing out on that. But nonetheless, I should have still sold maybe around 50% just in case, and then leave 50% in, and then if that would double up, that would be fine, you know. So the whole point here is to not be greedy when it comes to gains, because nowadays it doesn't seem like we're going to be seeing 5x to 10x crazy gains like we've seen in 2021. So if we see a 2x or a 3x gain, we have to be happy. We have to take it. We can't just let it slip and give it back to the market, because the market will be fast when it comes to taking it back from you when you least expect it, because it all depends on Bitcoin. The other thing I wanted to talk about here is Injective. So Injective has also been struggling. As you see here, it went to $25.90 after it had that push to the downside here. This was after the initial pop where it went to $27, only to go all the way down to $24, which is crazy, right? It went to the low $24 here, even below $23.90 something. And then it went back up to $25.90. Okay, so it had a $2 move here, and then it went all the way back down to $24.20. So when I saw that it does have some support here, because this was previous resistance that it struggled to break, okay, so this acted as a nice support, a nice cushion. Then I saw a bounce here. I actually got into this trade here. I took a long here, thinking that, you know, we might revisit this area. Now what I did do, because I saw that it did struggle to break past this point here, what I did do here is I actually took 50% of the table and I moved my stop loss to break even, just to be in some sort of profit and not give it all back if it does go back down, because this could happen, right? You could see a bounce here, then the red bar, and then it could keep on going down below, and then if it would have gone below this low, it would have knocked me out. So instead I just decided to take 50% of the table, let the rest run with moving my stop loss to break even. And in the end, it ended up going to my target anyway. My initial target was 25.07, and unfortunately I had gotten out a bit earlier, because then when it got to 24.88, I just got out completely. I just didn't think it's going to continue going up. I thought that it's going to struggle because of this area of support here. This was the previous area of support, which would now be resistance, and seeing that it has also touched the 100-day smoothed moving average, and it has initially touched it here and bounced down. I thought it's going to bounce down again, and I just didn't want to give it all back, so I'd rather just take something off the table. It's a good enough profit for me personally with this specific trade with 15x leverage. So yeah, overall, you know, sometimes just holding on to your trades can be more beneficial. Like had I not taken 50% off the table here and had I just let it run, you know, yeah, sure, I could have got knocked out and actually lose money. But if I would have waited, I could have made a lot more money, double of what I have already made. So, you know, to play it safe, you do get less money out. And then when it goes against you, you end up losing the same amount, because you just have to follow your rule, right? But this was actually a good risk to reward ratio for me, because even if this would have gone against me, you know, the risk to reward was pretty good here, that this could have just bounced all the way back here, perhaps even get to these levels of 25.80, 25.90 again. We don't know yet. We'll have to see how it reacts here, because it does seem to be struggling around this area. As you see, we're getting some red bars here on the 5-minute chart. So I'm considering even placing a short here, potentially, as we may revisit this area of that low $24 again. And perhaps I can play this short and just let this run instead, and just maybe place like the stop loss around here, 25.26, 25.27 should be a safe enough spot, because if this gets broken, then that's fine. It just means it wants to move higher. But if it does go down because of this pressure that is getting here, preventing it to go higher, then it could be a nice trade for a short on the way down as well. Given that I've already made some on the long, I can also make something on the short. So yeah, that's why I prefer to just play support and resistance. Keep it simple. If I see the chart is giving me some trade potential, then I'll just take the trade, right? I'll jump straight in. If it doesn't give me, I'm not going to try and chase a trade. Right here we can see that it does give me a potential trade because it is struggling in this area of previous resistance here, which has accumulated and it's quite heavy. It is hard to break. If it does not break it, it could break it, but if it does not break it, which is a higher probability that it may not because of this, then a short possibility here would probably give you an over 50% chance. Again, it depends on Bitcoin because Bitcoin does play a big role here. If Bitcoin continues to go up higher and breaks 70K again, then Injective is just going to follow. But if Bitcoin dumps below 69K again, then Injective is going to dump because it follows Bitcoin. So yeah, this is the other thing you got to watch is the market that you're trading reacting to the king of crypto, which is Bitcoin. If it's independent, then it's different. It doesn't really matter what's going to happen to Bitcoin much because if it's on an uptrend anyway, it's going to continue going higher. And if Bitcoin goes a bit higher, that specific altcoin is going to go insane, parabolic most of the time, right? As we have seen. And if it's on a downtrend and then Bitcoin pulls back a bit, it's going to crash it to the floor, right? So Bitcoin going up when it's in a downtrend doesn't really help the altcoin. That's what I've been seeing. So it does help the ones that are trading sideways or the ones that are in an uptrend already before Bitcoin goes in that uptrend. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this with Dymension. It's a bit of a letdown with the fact that the tokenomics are the way they are, but it's just for you to understand and to keep in mind that tokenomics are very important when it comes to what is being unlocked and how it can affect the price over a specific period of time. And I know that the altcoin market isn't doing great now, so we can't really blame it specifically on that unlock schedule, but the unlocks do play a role as well in suppressing the price from performing despite the airdrops being given out to us, and so many of them as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.